and really highlight young and emerging artists, alongside some big name artists.
Yes.
And we're really looking to focus on music that has cultural identity, local instruments, local rhythms. So it's all about celebrating African music in its huge variety. So we have about 500 groups apply every year, almost 600 this year, 40 spaces. So how do we select them? Let me say about 60% will represent East Africa, and then 40% will represent other countries like Mali, Senegal, Nigeria, etc. But I think a critical success factor for this festival is I'm not motivated to make a festival for tourists. It's something that's happened, and we celebrate that fact that it's bringing people from all over the world. But I think a really important element here is that this is a shared experience for local people, who make up about half the audience, and for the international visitors who get an authentic kind of experience being shoulder to shoulder with Tanzanians, with East Africans celebrating music. So for us it's really important to keep the event accessible for Tanzanians and East Africans, so we have different prices. This year is for a 4-day pass, all festival pass, it was $120 for international visitors. For any African passport holders, $60, so half price. And for Tanzanians, 20,000 shillings, $10 or less. So that's the kind of very sort of wide difference.
That's for one day or for all the days of the festival?
For 4 days.
Okay.
The day tickets were much less, of course. Okay. Yeah. So for 20,000 Tanzania shillings, $9, they get in and out for 4 days.
Okay.
And then a lot of other things we're doing involving training, seminars for arts managers, technicians, stage managers, sound and lighting crew and so on. And we have these forums every day called Movers and Shakers for local and visiting professionals to network. And that's a kind of intro to the festival. And I don't know if we should maybe let the others talk before we go into the financial and the impact assessment.
Sure. Can you tell us about Bayimba, Faisal?
Bayimba is a young festival. This year we'll be celebrating our 10th edition. We started in 2008, and our entry was based on the fact that Uganda didn't have a multidisciplinary platform where different art forms could meet and kind of share experience, showcase works, but also forge collaborations. So we thought that it would be interesting to kind of create a platform where we can either forcefully engage artists to collaborate, but also present works that are kind of groundbreaking, also coming in from other places so that our local artists could experience the works. So we started in 2008, and our programming has stayed the same. So we present music, dance, theater, film, photography, fashion, street theater, poetry, literature, whatever is good to present. And we operate in a small space at the National Theatre, which is right behind the Parliament, which is also not very good. So the parliamentarians are looking at us. What are they doing? But it's also fun because they kind of, like when they are bored with the work, they can slow down and come and see what we are doing. We work with several partners, local partners, regional partners, and international partners. The festival started as a free festival because we realized that we could not price it from the beginning, majorly because many of the locals didn't really understand what an arts festival was about. So if we could put a program of street theater, music, dance, they would be like, what is it? And it's for 3 days, what are they going to see? So we wanted to first get them understand what it is. And for 4 years we ran it as a free festival. And then we realized that the numbers were getting high and we could not really control them. So we started pricing with 1,000, which is like nothing actually. And we thought that maybe the numbers will reduce, and they stayed the same, so we kept on adding. Now we have 10,000 shillings, which is like, I don't know, less than...
Like $3.
Yeah, less than $3.
For the whole festival?
For the, each day.
Or per day?
Per day. And it's flat for anyone, whether you're young or old or international or local, so everyone pays the same amount. And the idea is also to get people to, there is this kind of status, kind of engaging. People think, oh, I'm an ambassador, I can pay more, then I'm local, I can't afford that. So what we like about it is that you find diplomats, foreigners, locals, uptown, downtown ministers, all on the same line. And they're all watching the same show, and no one cares who you are, except someone who knows you. So it's always like that advantage that the festival has created, that we tend to see people at an equal level, and I think it's a beautiful thing. Also, we've really used the festival to introduce new art forms in the sector, which I think was theater, but all separate. Now we try to bring in new forms of art, like sound art, like electronic music, DJs. We try to bring in street theater. We brought in fashion and lighting, and we also do a lot of trainings, workshops and stuff for like sound engineering and stuff like that. So over time, I think the festival has really become significant for the arts and the sector at large, and I think it's become also a benchmark for other festivals to like, oh, we wanna grow, we wanna be like Bayimba, we wanna be, and I think it's a good thing. So we really do our best to keep the programming exciting, and we've over time also experienced that we are having a very experiencing audience. So that also keeps us on our toes, because we know that an experiencing audience always looks for something new, something that they have not seen before. So every year we do our best to bring in something new that people will be like, okay, that was different. And if we don't have something new, then people are like, yeah, it wasn't, there was nothing new to see. So we've really we always have to find something special to add.
When you say something new, sorry, to cut you off. When you say something new, is it creatively, or is it some art from outside? Because I presume the artist will be from the local area. So what makes it new?
It's not totally, our programming is like 60% local.
And 40%.
And then 40% from elsewhere. And when I say something new, it doesn't matter where it comes from, but what matters is that something people have not seen before, and something people might see for that moment, and they don't hope to see it again. It can be a musician, it can be a theater person, it can be a photography exhibition. We've been introducing new things, and last year we had a very interesting exhibition about a collaborative photo exhibition between a Swedish photographer and Ugandan photographers, which was a competitive exhibition, and we brought on a topic about Swedish dads and Ugandan dads, and you could see, so we thought that maybe, my thought was like, okay, let's try to see, because I'm a Ugandan and I can kind of relate to what Ugandan dads think when they see their kids growing up, but and also knowing what the European culture is with their children when they're growing up. So I wanted to see the reaction of Ugandans when they see how Swedish people deal with their kids and how do they relate to their kids. And it was the most, visited exhibition because everyone was stuck there. They were like, wow, they could see the contrasts and the differences. And I think these things will make a lot of meaning for our audiences. They always want to see these kind of things. So we try to find new things to program. So yeah, and this year we are having a kind of special program because it's our 10th and you're all invited.
Are you sending us?
And what kind of support do you get from the government?
Can I ask you to hold that question, because that's one of our follow-up questions, and I want to hear from everybody, but I want to bring Aziza into the conversation before we get there. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll speak about Wikendi Live because that's what I'm doing at the moment. And Wikendi Live is a concept for a live music event that we wanted to do regularly. So we all love and appreciate, African art and music, but we felt like we don't want to wait once a year before we can go and experience some of these festivals. And also having grown up here as well, and my father being from Ongala, who was a very established African musician, I felt personally, and a few others, is that where is the talent in Tanzania? There is talent here. I mean, we have over 100 and something different tribes. Every tribe has a language. They have dances for every different occasion. They have traditional instruments. There's so much culture here. And we felt like, but it's not being exposed. And most importantly, it's not being passed on. So a lot of these old instruments are dying. Like when the babu in the village stops playing, the youngsters, it's not being passed on. Some of the stuff is documented and preserved, but the point is it's not being passed on the way it should be. So how do we create an environment and a platform to keep these things going, and most importantly for Tanzanians to be proud of this culture and history? I think where there's been a difference is back in the day when my father was doing music, there was hardly any recording industry. And my mother and my parents were always telling me that the live music scene in Dar es Salaam was absolutely electrifying. Every band was at its best and they were competing, and people were there, and there was so much going on with the music as well, a lot of messages, a lot of positive messages, which is not so easy to find nowadays. And with the rise of technology and maybe bongo flavor, we felt that a lot of that, unfortunately or fortunately, for musicians in a sense, unfortunately, that got lost. And all the attention of the media and everything went to kind of contemporary pop, hip-hop, which is great, but what about all this other stuff that we're losing? And so me and a few other colleagues and other, like Rashid, who was supposed to be here, we talked about having like a music circuit, because we talk about this East African community, but what is this East African community? When are we actually meeting in these occasions and coming together and doing things together? And so we decided it would be great if we could create a tour circuit where we can have artists from Uganda and Kenya traveling by road and stopping at different places and performing. And so that we can really say we are an East African community, and because we are actively doing things and we're exchanging ideas and knowledge from our rich African cultural heritage perspective. So we came up with the concept of Wikendi Live, which in 2016 we used to do monthly. The kind of bands that have a strong connection to culture and heritage. So they may be fusion, but they're definitely African, or there's a traditional instrument. And people loved it because, especially in Dar es Salaam, it's hard to find that. Unless you're into maybe Congolese music, you might have FM.
Can I interrupt? Can you mention just an example of those bands
that we were doing?
Yes.
That we're doing? Okay, so there's people like Swahili Ali from Zanzibar. We've curated. So, Swahili Ali, I would say, we've had Marahaba band. These are Tanzanian bands that we've had, but now we're bringing in Kenyan and Ugandan bands as well. Is that enough?
Yeah, that's enough.
So this year we managed to get a bit of funding from the Danish embassy, and we can't do it every month because we're bringing in an East African act, so either Kenyan or Ugandan for now, but hopefully I would like to bring, an Ethiopian band down. We would like to do Rwanda. The rest of East Africa will be great. But for now, because our ties, we have stronger ties with Uganda and Kenya, that's what we're doing. So we are able to bring one East African act down with 2 Tanzanian bands. And it's almost like a mini festival environment. And it's absolutely great because people are able to dance and enjoy music. Unfortunately, it has to be free, because if it's not free, Masata will be on our case, and we literally don't have the funds. So we put everything in, and it's not sort of like a luxury thing. We do it at Nafasi Art Space, which is a very kind of rough and ready space, which is great. It's already an art space, so it's very fitting for that kind of thing. But unfortunately, we can't charge. So we're just able to bring artists down by road. So for example, the last Ugandan band, Kenneth Mugabe, 30 hours on a bus from Kampala.
I was gonna say.
But at the end of the day, I also think that's a positive thing, and it's great because that's what bands are supposed to do. You're supposed to travel by road because you pick up so much, you're able to bond, and that's what my father did very well in this country. He wasn't a native Tanzanian. He was actually originally from Congo, but he traveled the country extensively by road when it took like 4 hours to get to Bagamoyo. Now it takes 1 hour to get to Bagamoyo. He went to every different region and took the time to learn the different dialects and incorporated that in his music. And that's why he became so loved and so well known here that a lot of people may not even know. They don't see him as anything but Tanzanian. So with Wikendi Live, I think we're able to create that environment. And you can see by the audience and the people that come. And we have like a very mixed crowd. Our aim is to bring a lot of local Tanzanians, because for me as well, it's about reminding them or showing them, the young generation, what real music is about and how that feels, because that's an experience. It's not something that you can really put in words, but it's something that you can definitely feel. And for them to enjoy that and to be able to dance and relax, so it's not just about looking good and, acting a certain way. Let your hair down, relax, and let the music, get into your soul. And I think we've finally reached a point where we are doing that. But of course, there's lots of limitations that we can talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
But in a nutshell, that's.
So to lead into the challenges conversation, I guess my question is, in your view as people who've been running festivals, do you think that it's possible for a festival in this region to be profitable? Yes?
That's a short answer.
How?
How?
I think it's partly about what Aziza was pointing towards, which is we're concerned with we call real music, African music, whereas if there's shows like Fiesta and so on that focus a lot on playback artists, and they come on stage, they pick an DJ, pick an and there's demand for that as well. It's got all the media, advertising, backup, sponsorships,
Because
and it can be profitable.
These guys, they're able to get the corporates on board. We've managed to get Red Bull to fund Wikendi as well as the Danish, and we find that that's a good balance. But the corporates have money to put into these kind of events, but unfortunately the corporates are not focusing on culture, tradition, and heritage. They are choosing to put their money on mainstream. Why? Because the media have monopolized that industry.
Pop culture,
Yes.
popular culture.
So that is what's getting all the attention and all the funds and all the credit. So really, it's not a small issue. It's like something that needs to be dealt with from all sides, and starting with African pride or national pride, to say, hey guys, we are African. We have so much to offer. We love the hip hop. Don't get me wrong. It's not that we don't love it, but there's so much more. So if we can get that platform on a media level, like Bongo Flava is getting, I think we would start to, get more funding.
So putting this together with the conversation that we had yesterday about impact investment, and you heard the people in the panel yesterday saying, you know, we, as an impact investor, I'm not just interested in doing good with my money, I also want to make money back. So a hypothetical like impact investor comes to you and says, you know, I want to put money into your festival. How would you, what are you seeing as the challenges to you accepting that money? Well, maybe not accepting, but you know, processing that money in a way that would actually bring a return to that person who's bringing you that investment. Would you be interested in that kind of investment?
I think all festivals are the same, though some, most of the time, serve different purposes. And I think when you talk about impact investment, we shouldn't also forget about the social impact into that, besides the financial impact. And yes, someone will be interested in partnering with Bayimba or investing in Bayimba because of its objectives. Why is it existing? Why is the festival there? And I think those are the things that we are looking at. That for us to engage in partnerships, private partnerships have been a challenge because we don't sync. You know, our values are not the same. They look at numbers. We look at you know, relevance. We look at how does the festival impact the community, the artists, and we run on 4 themes of like what does the festival do for the arts? So in general, as arts, and what does it do for the artists? And then what does it do for the space where we are organizing it? And then the organization itself. So these 4 things are very important to us. So if any investor is not looking at the festival from these perspectives, it's difficult to sell the idea or for them to invest in it, because we just don't want to organize a festival and just have a party, get drunk or whatever it is. We want to see that the art forms, the art as in its artistry is grown. So every artist who is programmed to represent an art form is doing their best, is the best at what they're doing. And if the artist is presented in that art form, how are we presenting that artist and what are we offering them more than just the paycheck? And the space itself, how do we use the space so that someone could be, because we are operating in open spaces, and that's also another campaign of how do we present art in open space, not only in auditoriums, but also in, you know, where you find a parking lot on a daily basis, and tomorrow is a festival space, and how does that space transform for someone to look at it and see like, wow, this was a parking space, it looks different, it's amazing, and then tomorrow when everything is done, it's back to its purpose. So I think these are very important for our festival, and we would love to have conversations with any investors who are looking at our perspective, and yes, that if they are coming in would help us to make money for them and for us, that would be great, but they have to look at our perspective first. Yeah. So we don't sell that.
I think it would be possible for South Busara to be more sustainable if we continued on pretty much the same lines in terms of diversity programming and so on, and made the ticket prices $200 a day. So I think we could make our festival could become more financially sustainable. And this is what the pressure is coming from donors all the time. How are you going to be sustainable? How are you going to be? I think one way we could be is if we had a similar kind of event and the ticket prices were $200 per day. I think there are people who will travel from all over the world to come, and for them $200 is not a big deal to see that we have 11 performances each day. But that would mean excluding most of the local audience, and that's not something we're prepared to do. So I think it's really important that we think about who these events for, and also who is benefiting from these events. And South Busara, you can really, because we live on an island, a small island with less than 1 million people, was very clear to see the impact. Because the one year we had no Sauti Busara in 2016, because there was a lot of siyasa between elections. That year we had to cancel the festival because there were no donors, no sponsors willing to commit until after the election results. The elections, which were held in October, were annulled in Zanzibar, and then eventually another election took place in March. So our festival would have been in that period. So that year there was no Sauti Busara, and the hotels were empty, and the taxi drivers were just sitting waiting. There was no business. The restaurants. It was really, really clear. Whereas usually that week, 10 days around the festival, that all the flights are full, all the ferries from Dar are full, all the hotels, restaurants, bars. Even the women selling tomatoes, the fishermen, they say this is their busiest by government. Of course they have more important priorities, health, education, and so on. But they've never supported financially the festival, and I kind of accept that. But what makes it difficult and what makes it tough? So Mahani mentioned me, right? Is that every year they come demanding more money, because there's licenses, permits, and business visa for the artists and so on and so forth. So, we might have to end up paying $60,000-$70,000 to the government
In licensing.
on licensing, permits, visas, withholding taxes, etc. So if that could just be waived or even reduced, that would be the difference between keeping the festival alive or not.
I'd like to know what's the proportion of the foreign to the local visitors in your. Have you made that analysis?
Yeah, sure, we have. It varies. When we started, it was something like 80% Tanzanians and 20% foreigners. Now it's about 50%, 50%, half. Half Tanzanians and half foreigners. And when we say foreigners, there are a lot of people coming from Europe, North America, Australia, but what interests me more is that Waswahili tunasalimiana. So when we're walking around the festival in the streets, it's vipi, salama, and then you get people saying, sorry, I don't speak Swahili. I'm from Ghana, I'm from Nigeria, I'm from Zambia, I'm from South Africa. So there's a new African kind of tourism. Black Africans are coming in to Zanzibar. And that's something that makes me very happy, because it's a kind of...
It's a conversation.
Yeah.
I'm also just wondering, doesn't the government of Zanzibar realize that with an investment of only $300,000, they can bring into the economy more than 7 million?
Yeah, we've had this conversation.
My investment banker gave me those numbers.
Yeah.
And they don't see that
it's complicated.
I know it has to do sometimes with the priorities.
So I think, in short, public-private business, international donors, government, and self-revenue. We can build partnerships, work together. These things can be completely sustainable.
Because even if they just waived the permit fees, that would be a significant financial contribution. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, he's speaking about Zanzibar, but I don't know, I'm under the impression that mainland is worse, because at least Zanzibar understands that tourism is their main income, and cultural tourism is such a significant part of that. Because people, yes, like you said, they travel, they want to see the land, they want to see but they also want to see the culture. Now in Tanzania, I don't think much is happening for cultural tourism. It's almost non-existent. People fly in, they go, and they see the animals, they do the safari, and then they fly out. But some people want to actually come. Me and a friend of mine started doing like little tours around Dar es Salaam, visiting all the old music venues of back in the day, and there was a market for that. People want that, and I think cultural tourism in mainland is really underutilized. It's almost not even acknowledged.
I have to say that I agree with that analysis, because I know a lot of people who, even for Kenyans, by the way, who drive down from Nairobi to Arusha, go to Ngorongoro, Kilimanjaro, get back on the bus and get back over the border without ever speaking to a Tanzanian, except maybe the person at the border. Never speak to anybody who's local, and that's it's a problem, right?
It's a problem because we have so much to offer.
Yeah.
And imagine the impact of the money that people spend going to see the animals or going to the all-inclusive beach resorts in Zanzibar, or meeting Tanzanians and going to music venues and buying local crafts and eating local food, and you know the impact in terms of who benefits.
Absolutely.
It's incredibly different.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring it back to bringing sponsors into these events. For those who were just doing the festivals privately, without donors, how do you strike a balance? Like she said, hypothetically, you have a sponsor who's willing to invest in your festival, but you have your own standards and morals about it. But then again, you need that money in order to you to be able to create the festival, pay the artists. For that to happen, you need that money. And let's say hypothetically you don't have that money, you need someone to come in. And Red Bull, here comes Red Bull. It's like, okay, I will give you $10,000, but how much Red Bull will I be able to sell? Because mostly that's the conversation they'll give us. Like, I'm very impressed, your numbers are great, you're attracting 3,000 people on your event every time, they're youngsters. I can give you this money, I have a marketing dollar, but what will I benefit out of it? And to just wear those shoes, I think that I don't know how you strike a balance between keeping your standards and your ethics and yet bring this investor in. And so I just want to know, how do you?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And one thing I believe in is that me and my team, we always, agree on the fact that one has to take the bullets sometimes. And sometimes just to change perceptions and the status quo, you have to stick to your values. Otherwise you get swallowed up and become an empty event.
But wouldn't that stop the event from happening?
It can't happen, because what we've worked on, I think one of the things that we recognize and set our goals to achieve was the 4 areas that we mentioned, because the festival cannot happen without the artists. So we had to build our reality. We had to build our reality with the artists. If the artists believe in the festival, then even if you have money or not, they will be there. Then we've also built our audience. We have like 74% of our audience is like loyal. They have to be at Bayimba. Otherwise it will be like we've wasted the year. And I think that's very important, because we realize that they are the same faces and they keep bringing their friends, they keep bringing, the festival has grown to that capacity. So one of the arguments we have with private sector was like, it's your choice. And this is literally what we discussed. It's your choice. Whether you are interested in partnering with the festival, if you think it meets your values as a brand, or it will go on. And not from a bragging way, because we don't spend much money. Our festival budget for the entire festival that goes on for 3 days, 300 or 400 artists, we spend actually, I think last year is when we spent a lot, and that was $50,000. But we are always between $40,000, $45,000. That's not so much to find, So $45,000 or $50,000, we can find it, and the festival will go on. So what we are trying to show here is that someone has to be out there to say that we can do things right, because we are operating in a market whereby everyone does things because they are privileged, or they have access to money, or because they don't care, or because they just want to be somebody. But here we are like, no guys, let's do something for the sake of doing it. Let's present art in its best way. Let's present artists in their best way. And
I understand all that. I understand that. I'm for that. I would like to do a festival because I know a lot of artists who deserve a platform to showcase what Tanzania have, what East Africa have. But to be realistic, everything, in order to get this chair set up here, the money has to be spent. Now, if you have some funds put somewhere, we have to ask, okay, where do you get those funds to start off? Do you go borrow that money, or do you have money yourself, or do you in Tanzania, most, I don't know, with Wikendi, but most of the people who do events here, they will have an idea, but funds will be a problem. But they can involve another, whether it's a sponsor, whether it's Red Bull, it's like, okay, I have a great idea, I have the crowd for it, and I have some artists, but here's my invoice. This is what I need in order to make this happen, and when you come on board, you'll benefit from that. So I'm just trying to look at the situation from not having anything and then
So I
trying
think
to
it's a balance. For me personally, because I actually started in events management from the corporate side, and what I found is that, for example, we had brought Peace Square here, which is a Nigerian hip-hop, well, pop group, Afro-pop group, a couple of years ago. And we did it with East Africa Radio and TV, and we spent like $200,000, right, for this one group. But then I've done bigger festivals where we've brought like over 20 Tanzanian artists and over 10 international artists, and we spent a lot less. So the money is there, it is there, and it's just about making those contacts, but striking a balance, and also being, because I know people from the arts industry and culture sometimes feel like they don't want to, they want to keep their integrity, and they don't want to, give too much to the brands. But in actual fact, I think what you'll find is that you can find brands that can fit into that, because at the end of the day, they're giving you funds for you to create something that you feel you need, but then they also have an objective.
Whether it's awareness.
Yeah, and so you just have to meet halfway, and then and they have to understand that this is what you need to do. Yes, you may not like Red Bull, and you may think they're not a healthy drink, but guess what? With that money, you're able to influence and inspire a generation of people, and they will bring you, maybe their cocktail tables are ugly, but people need cocktail tables, so then that will be, something less on your budget that you need to spend. So it's just finding that balance.
I think also we have to accept that no one is going to jump on your event when it's just starting. It will take time, and we started for 3 years. We operated on our own money. For 3 years, I had to find money to pay my staff, monthly salaries. I had to find money for the festival, until it kind of started to make some, reason for people to jump on board, to give you 10,000 here, 20,000 there. And once you build that reputation, once you survive, some people were like, oh, we didn't know you were going to survive for 2 years. We didn't know you were going to survive for 4 years. Now, oh, you're making 10 years. Oh my God, we should give you some money. These conversations coming, but you have to build that credibility. And that also is built on, on the relevancy of the event. So people see, they know, they understand, even if they're, I have conversations with the most corrupt people in Uganda, but they fear to have any conversation because they're like, man, you've really hustled with it. They know, you're not gonna take their money because of them having their money. They give you that respect, and I think it's more relevant than just saying, okay, I need the money, please, please, and that's what happens to money events. Like, they go pleading to these guys, if you don't give us money, we are not going to be able to do it. Then they dictate the terms, because you need their money. And for us,
that's exactly where I was going with that. How do you, because now they gave you the money, now you lost the power, whatever you have on that event, they have to.
Not necessarily.
Actually, saying you avoid that.
Yeah. You avoid that.
Yeah. I could respond, but I know Grace is trying to. But we're learning. We're still learning. Continually learning how to negotiate and deal with commercial sponsors like Red Bull, Coca-Cola, and all these others, and also the donors, frankly. Also, and on both sides, they're very dangerous because they can greatly influence your event. for better or for worse. And commercial, of course, they want their branding, so we ended up having to change all our colours 1 year, 2 years for Zantel. So instead of being red and orange, we had to be green and green. And then for the donors, we have to invent things about, health education, about HIV and
Or
stuff.
the festival is going green.
Which so it's pressure. So basically, we have a package of things that we offer for Friends of Busara. People chip in $1,000 and they get their logo on our website. Our website gets 2 million hits a month in November, December, January. Or $3,000 to be a festival partner, or $6,000 to be a logo sponsor. Now, when you're a logo sponsor, it means you get the logo in a lot of different places and banners in the venue and so on. And then, of course, sponsors always want extra flags and banners and teardrops and film projections and so on. So it's a case of negotiating, I think, on a case-by-case basis. But basically, we'll take money from anyone and promote them, except alcohol and cigarettes. Yeah. Otherwise...
Is that because you're in
Because the young
Zanzibar?
people come...
Because we're in
Zanzibar.
Zanzibar.
Yeah, because mainland, that's where we get most of our funding. But also I was going to say, it's about negotiation, because what we're selling, your festival is a product, right? And it's a damn good product because you have a record to prove it. Any corporate, any brand, that's what they are. They're a product. So they have their interest, you have your interest. You have to argue your interests. And you have to, so you can come at it at a very corporate level and say, look, this is my product. I will let's meet halfway. You give me this and I will provide this for you. And you can have your own people and they can push their sales on the ground if they want to. But ultimately what you're selling is a product. So if you believe in your product, then you negotiate.
In a platform to help an artist, but you will never hear that the artists are helping the organizers, because we're the content providers. So if I'm an artist, in order for your festival, your event to liven up, you need artists to perform on it. I'm actually helping you.
I think I said that at the beginning. We work because we believe the festival cannot exist without the festival.
I'd like to respond to that. And I'm really pleased we're focusing a little for short time. Thank you, Grace, bringing it up on the artists here, because this is what it's all about. Not just providing money for artists, but visibility, promotion, and livelihood. I think when it comes to impact investment, it's really helpful to think about the artist first and foremost, and that's why in my experience in Zanzibar, it's one thing you really suffer from is the lack of opportunities in education. There's no arts programming, not just music, performing arts, but other arts in schools, and I think education should be the first priority. And of course this is government related. But also further on in terms of training opportunities and things like, it's not just about the artists, but the artists, how many artists in Tanzania have good management or managers? Not many. How many good sound engineers are there in Tanzania? Not many. I don't know about the wider East Africa. So I think, in terms of the creative industries as well, there's a lot of supporting roles. And then, in terms of impact, I think, when you look at East African artists, by nature, especially musicians, they are ambassadors. I think more people know about Remy Ongala than would even know the name John Pombe Magufuli in a lot of countries. More people know Yusuf than who is the president of Senegal. I think artists are de facto cultural ambassadors, and I would like to see East African governments doing more to help with visa, supporting visa, making it easier for artists, musicians to get visa. I'd also like to see East African governments support musicians and other artists with travel bursaries to make it easier for artists to move more freely across borders in Africa. I'm sure Mandela, if you have a Tanzanian passport, is very different from me travelling with a British passport.
True.
And, you know, I think in terms of government, businesses and cultural organisations like ours, we just really need to have regular meetings, communication, build partnerships, because these festivals like these are, you know, they're win-win-win-win for everyone, and we can't keep doing it without support from our governments, from the tourism industry and so on.
I'm going to build up on that. That's.
Excuse me, I've been raising my hand for almost
Sorry.
past 1 year.
I want to for what
And
extent?
seriously, let me tell you, I'm going to fight.
Well,
I think
if
I've
you
been
want to fight,
for
we can
so long.
fight.
And now you have to give me a word and I speak.
You have to
Okay?
respect that.
Otherwise, I'm just going to fight.
We can fight next week.
Please,
I
I
wanted
have to speak.
You will speak. I wanted
have
to
to
speak
speak.
to you about this
I
government
have
question.
to speak.
Yeah.
Because
This
that's
one, my
why,
question.
because he asked the question and I want to
I've
go
been
back to his
raising my
question.
hand for the past
But I
years.
think he
I have
asked
to
the
speak.
question before you.
Yeah.
Let's
Oh
talk
my
about the
goodness.
government, because you touched on a couple
Excuse
of
me.
things.
Now let me be serious. Okay, let me be serious.
I think that's really disrespectful, sir.
No, I think that's respectful to me.
I think he asked the question before you.
Actually, before this topic, there are like 3 topics I skipped. I would have a question, I raise my hand, and I let it go.
But the
Second topic comes, I raise my hand, I let it go. And now you're saying he raised it before me.
Yes, because I cut him off. He was starting the question, and I cut him off, and I promised him that we would come back to it, and now we're coming back to it because.
Let me tell you, that's
Sir, I'm the
disrespectful.
moderator.
You are the moderator,
I'm the
but
moderator.
I don't think
Can I just moderate the
all
panel?
the respect I gave you,
Can I moderate this panel, please?
I
Your
contest
time,
it.
Moderator.
Point
Your
of
time will
order.
come. Your time
Yeah.
will come.
The time will come.
I think you're moderating, but you're not dictating. Okay.
It's no need of that.
I don't think there's need
It's
for
not
this.
necessary.
Listen, the way the panels were structured was that the panelists would have a chance to have a conversation and then the questions would come in later. We restructured the panel because there were few people in this room so that everybody could have a chance to contribute.
Okay, let's yes.
I interrupted this gentleman in the beginning. I promised him that I would come back to him when we got to the question about the government, and that is precisely what we're doing. Yusuf has very naturally raised the question about government. I think it's an important issue. I want to connect it to the question that he brought up, and then I'm going to address you. There's no rush.
Okay,
We have 45
listen,
minutes left.
Now this is not about you and me. Let's listen to the whole group. If the whole group says, okay, I withdraw. Okay? My fighting spirit. If they think you've judged fairly,
Okay.
that's fine. So, audience, you judge. If it's the audience or the members, what do you think?
What shall we talk about?
I think let the
I think
moderator.
the moderator-
Let's listen to everyone. Let's listen to everyone because I want this one to be very transparent and realistic.
Then I think
let's
we should
start
listen
from
to the
the whole
moderator
table.
so that we continue with your question. That's what I think.
Let's listen to the moderator. And
Yeah.
let's allow him to speak, and then you can.
Yeah. Then I was asking a very small question. I want to know what is the contribution, the support from your government.
Okay.
I think this question also should apply to you and yeah.
Yeah, I think as you know, Uganda is not a rich country till recently when we discovered oil. And that has not really actually helped so much to kind of build the momentum up. But we understand that as the culture sector that we don't have much to expect from the government, and we actually don't ask because we know that the ministry, I spend more money as an organization than the ministry spends on its entire budget. So that's already a significant acknowledgement. And but in one way or the other, they come in to support, because one thing I really appreciate about our officials, I will not say the government, maybe the government doesn't know what they're doing, but officials within the departments and the Ministry of Culture, I think they are very appreciative of the work we are doing, and that even the city authorities actually waive some of the taxes or permits that we are supposed to pay. Like we're supposed to pay the event permit, which they give us, like, instead of paying $1 million point something, we pay like 30% of that. because they say, okay, we want to be, we don't want to take it off to zero, but at least pay something small, but that's at least it's waived. We don't, we waive all the performance permits, so we don't pay permits for every band that comes in, which makes our budget really low. And then also we have a lot of things to pay, like in other events, security. We have like 10 security passes that we have to pay clear, but they are all, we only pay for the personnel, not the fee, and I think that's really, really great. So we find them very appreciative, and there are regulations, but they say no, this event is significant. Even when we had the most testing times in our country, when we had the 2010 bombings during the World Cup finals, all events were cancelled. All events were cancelled, and we were just 2 months away. But that same week, our permits were cleared. And I was like, okay, I thought this is not going to happen. But it was really a significant acknowledgement that they really appreciate what we're doing and they respect. But we also haven't had any bad record, and I hope it continues like that.
Has it always been that way? Or?
Yeah. No, it's not always been that way. We've negotiated our way. Okay. Because we, as I said, we first started and we were like, okay, well, let's give them 2 years. Let's give them 3 years. Let's give them 5 years. Now they have realized that it's part of the culture, the festival to happen, and so many people wait for it, and they are always appreciative, and everyone comes to it. So they realize that, yeah, we are, and they also think or maybe they know that we're not doing it for the money. So they are like, okay, it's, yeah.
Okay. Aziza, Aziza, what's your relationship with the government?
So, in talking about Wikendi Live, it has to be free, which doesn't make it very sustainable for us. So right now we've got the Danish sponsoring 6th edition for the year because we've had to do it every other month. We haven't been able to do it every month, so it's every 2 months, so that we can afford a little budget to bring an East African act down by road, so nothing luxury, and then they just stay in a simple guest house. And so we've spoken to Basata and we said to them, look, can we try and make this a bit more self-sustainable? And they said, no, if you charge, you have to pay.
So it's tax?
Yes, so we're unable to pay. But then on another level, the frustrating thing is that Tanzanians also have, a lot of the middle to upper class have this mentality that if an event is free, it's fujo, it's trouble. So there's a lot of people that we could be tapping into if we could charge. And we're talking about charging maybe not more than 5,000 shillings, which is very little. And I've had corporate, people in the mainstream industry, like DJs from Clouds, approach me because they've heard about this event and they're saying, well, why aren't you charging? Why aren't you promoting this on radio? Radio is expensive. We don't have a budget for radio. And we can't afford to charge because if we charge, we also get taxed. And he's saying, no, charge, even if it's 2,000, even if it's 5,000, it will bring more people in. But unfortunately, at the moment, we're unable to do that. So it doesn't make it very self-sustainable. So if the Danish choose not to sponsor us next year, because of whatever reason, we're in the same boat.
Even if you register as a non-profit, the way they are?
Yes.
Because it's taxed on because it's tickets?
Yeah. Because it's under Nafasi Art Space, which is an NGO, a very good creative space for lots of visual performing artists. And even though that we want to get more Tanzanians there, actually right now, we can say we have quite a lot of expats coming. And I find that quite funny how we have foreigners that appreciate what we have, the art and culture that we have, but yet our own people simply don't see no value in it.
To sort of put a bow on the government conversation, would you put government as a challenge or an opportunity in your column?
It's a challenge.
I'll say it's a challenge.
Challenge?
Yeah, it's a challenge. Especially Basata is a challenge because they seem to be focusing more on policing whatever happens more than helping. Because I've been overseas and Basata is supposed to be an art council that really help and even give grants to people in order to promote the culture, the local culture. But what they're doing is the opposite. They're more focused on who doesn't have the license, who's not identified as an artist, who's doing festivals so we can go and get money, who's a foreigner performing here so we can go get money.
Yeah.
And they're doing quite the opposite. They're acting more as an immigration more than as council.
True.
I think when it comes to the government, there's so many elements that play here when firstly, we're not really very closely connected with the government of the United Republic of Tanzania, because we have this kind of semi-autonomous situation, and it seems that the Zanzibar government, which has its own equivalent, instead of Basata, we have Basaza, Zanzibar, who we're dealing with, and the Board of Censors, and the Immigration, and the Ministry for Arts and Culture, and the Municipal, and so on and so forth. So everyone is quite different. Like I say, we've never received financial support at all from the government, quite the opposite. But I think I can say that relationships with various people in lots of different ministries is getting stronger and more win-win every year. Certainly, we've have a lot of issues with people travelling, artists travelling from countries like Senegal, Mali, Ethiopia, where they have referred visa, need to be applied several months in advance and things like this. So we have good people in immigration who are very supportive. And the police and the national security are very supportive. You know, we have a carnival parade going through the streets, so they have to stop the traffic. And so I think I can say relationships on a one-to-one basis with people working in government departments and local authorities is very positive. But in terms of formal support, probably mine are less than zero, because there's huge potential, I think. I think even when it comes to, the government, people travel to a lot of international events. Zanzibar is primarily a tourism destination, so when they go to all these tourism trade fair conferences, which is quite regularly with their travel, their per diems, everything is paid. And we're giving them bunches of postcards, and they just put them under the desk and forget about them. But these are great opportunities. It doesn't cost anything. They could really support the festival. They could support bringing tourism to Zanzibar and getting more revenues. But some people are very interested, keen, excited, and supportive, and others are just like
it's too weird.
Maybe just
humanity.
Just to add on that just a little bit, because I used to work with Busara from the very beginning, and my understanding to that was that from the very beginning, a lot of people, officials, thought that there's a lot of money in Busara because of the size of the festivals, the logos, the donors, food foundations. So this was the perception. I remember during the time when the guys from Board of Censors came to our office, wanting to see all the music videos that have been submitted by the artist, so that they can say, okay, this can come in, this no, because this is not according to the customs. And we were like, but musicians, what you see in the video can be completely the opposite of what you see on stage. Any musician can decide to undress naked on the stage, and what we do. Because this is not a film festival where you can actually go through all the films. So that has been a challenge, and not only in Zanzibar, even here. Whenever you do a festival, I remember with Karibu, I've had some people saying, you guys, those guys at Karibu, they have a lot of money, they pay us peanut, because this is just the understanding. At some point when I was at Busara, I had to come all the way to Dar es Salaam to East African television, because someone sort of went around meeting local artists from Dar es Salaam, Bongo Flava artists, who were commenting on TV saying that Busara is not. First of all, Busara brings a lot of artists from outside than Tanzanians or East Africans, and they also claimed that they are also paying a lot of money to international artists. These were all the accusations that they had, and they were actually putting this spot for almost the whole week, East African television. It was like a deliberate move to sort of like saying, Busara has something dodgy going on. So I had to come here, and when we had that session, I said to them, when we were live, I said, this was wrong, because if there were all these accusations from the artists, I think we should all be here so that whoever was watching would have a fair plate from us. So I said, first of all the artists that we've interviewed, none of them have applied to come to Sauti Busara Festival. And actually, the amount of money that I'm paying Faisal to perform and Aziza to perform, unless Aziza decides to actually show Faisal, how would you know that we are paying artists from outside East Africa that much? So it is just that understanding, and people are actually spreading these rumors. And it was affecting, because even some of the corporates saying, you guys are having a lot of money, why do you come to us? And some of them were also saying, if you want a corporate from mainland Tanzania to support Busara, maybe you should bring the festival to the other side, things like that. Just to add on what Yusuf was saying, it's the mentality issue. I think now people are starting to understand. And I think it takes time, but hopefully things will change.
Okay. Sir, your questions?
It's too late now.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Never too late.
Yes, no, it was too late, and
we still have half
I was not happy by the way you chaired, but I'm also really found the participants also unfair to me, because they took sides, and it's like no one saw where I was coming from. For sure, this was not good.
Why don't you just make your comment that's relevant to the...
You know when people are discussing, sometimes there's a point where your point is relevant. So when they go beyond that point, it's like taking them back, and you feel you don't have the energy, or you think your point will not make sense at that time. Yeah, so it's too late to make my point.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to that point? There's something that I wanted to come back to, which was, you mentioned the 360-degree value chain for music, which is obviously, again, we're at an impact investment conference. We're talking about people who want to come in and want to give financial support and want to get something a little bit back from what they've put in. So when you look at the value chain for a music festival, where do you see there being the most work that needs to be done, to make how do you see, here in this space with creatives, whatever, where do you see that we have the most opportunity to actually get some money back out of the value chain for a music festival, at least from an investor perspective?
I think it depends on the kind of partnership or investment. For beer brands, definitely, they always count the bottles, how many crates are sold, and it's fun, because one of the things that we do, that we always get beer companies sponsoring. We are lucky.
Sorry.
And at the end of the day, however, even when they sponsor, like they give hard cash, between 50 to 70 million, they always come. They always give us also a percentage of the sales, each bottle. That is in our contract. So whatever bottle is sold, we get a 20%. And that is always
that's
it's
a lot.
very interesting.
That's an amazing deal.
So that is always my logistic team has to count how many crates come in and how many go out after the festival, and then they give us. They're always honest, so we count it, and then we know we've sold 100 or 200 crates, and then we get our 20%. So that's an additional income to us, but it also shows from us that it's a two-way. So we try to drive traffic to the bars to make sure that people drink, because we need our 20% to be higher.
That's how you got drunk in
People drink a lot, and when there is an opportunity for people to drink and they are encouraged, they will go for it, and you'll be shocked. So we always try to push from our side that the more you drink, the more money we get, and then people really drive to the bars and they drink it all. That's for beer. Now we have the whiskeys. We count how many liters of whiskeys are sold, and that is we also get a percentage of each liter of whiskey sold. So if someone sells like 10 bottles of Jack Daniels, so we get like 1 bottle is ours, then 9 are theirs, and it works. It makes a lot of sense for us. It makes a lot of sense for them because they want to make sales. We want to get that percentage, and so we try to encourage people to go to the bar. But that's for drinking. Then the food is the same. So for the food section is that everyone pays to be. We don't charge them per percentage. Everyone pays to sell the food, and we try to help them because we don't want them to the festival to end like, oh, no, I paid you a lot of money, I didn't make it. We try to make sure that at least they earn something, and that what we do, we limit the number of foods stalls. So if someone is making Rolex, there has to be one person so that they can make as much sales. If someone is selling burgers or coffee, whatever, there is that one person. We don't make 2. Then the other thing,
what's a Rolex?
A Rolex is a regional delicacy.
Delicacy.
Yeah. We've had for like 7 years. We've had this brand. What is it? This Swedish brand for makeup. Oliflame.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oliflame has always come to Bayimba, and I always wondered why do they want to sponsor the festival? They don't give much money, but they always like 2 million, 3 million, and they're always there. So one time I asked the CEO, what is it that you benefit instead of this? Because people come and they make you up and blah blah blah, and they're like, no, people come, we make them up, and they like it, and they come to our store to buy more makeup, and I'm like, okay. So that's also how they engage, and so there are different investments. I don't see a banker coming to the festival because I think it will be really difficult for them to add value. But the other thing that we are working on now is that we are trying to upgrade our payment system so that we use credit cards for payments, so that you buy a card and you credit it and you can buy anything. And now that is also bringing in the bankers to start saying, okay, if you have an account, you credit direct on your card. But it's quite an expensive investment because it's going to cost us around $70,000 to do it. And we are really planning to have it in the next 2 years so that it also gets now, bankers coming in to support.
Yeah, I would just like to add, I think even banks, you can find a platform, it just depends which bank. When I was directing the Caribbean Music Festival, we almost got EcoBank to sponsor, and they have money, because they were, at the time, they were talking about, I think they see themselves as a Pan-African bank. So, and our lineup was very mixed Africans, because we had people from all parts of Africa coming, so it kind of reflected what they were claiming their brand was about. So I think there are so many opportunities within festivals, but I think I would say personally the major obstacle that we have in mainland is the government, because if the government were supporting or added value, saw the value in what we're offering, then the corporates would be, because corporates have their social responsibility, so they have money every year that they have to give for different things. I think if the government valued a lot more in actions what we have, culturally speaking, because every corporate company has to be okay with the government. So the government has a very fundamental role to play, and if they promoted this and they would say, hey, this is us and we're proud of our cultural heritage, it would send more corporates down this road. And also festivals, it's not just performing music, there's artists, there's dancers, there's so much incorporated in the festival, it's not just sort of one-dimensional. So there's so many things you can build into that, and I think if people really understood that, then they could start to see the value in these things and maybe not just associate it with certain stigma, or it's for this, it's for that, So it's alcohol, great, they're able to put the money in, but there's lots of other things, like you said, the makeup, they're there because they understand their product and they know that actually this works for us. So for me, I think the government has to sort of play that role to push people in our direction.
Sorry, what question?
Chris.
Go ahead.
I think just to kind of emphasize what Aziza is saying, it's very, very true. I think if anybody from either government or outside the sector came and heard the way Faisal explained how his festival is doing, how diverse this entire process is, they actually saw how they fit into that kind of like ecosystem. It would really help to actually bring in people and have people say, okay, this is how it's affecting me, and this is my role. But I think the person who needs to drive that conversation has to be the government. Because corporate would come to this space simply because that's where the people are.
Yeah.
They're selling the product, and this is where the people are coming, and this is where Oriflame is going to come there and sell their stuff. So they would have that, and then they also have their corporate responsibility. They have to give money to their corporate responsibility. It's assigned to them. But the government is like the person who says this has to be done, this has to be done, but on their side, what are they doing? So I think also the government has to understand the kind of role it plays and how they are supposed to be the ones anchoring that. We just don't have that many platforms to actually discuss such things, you know. I really, really hope what Yusuf is saying, that we need to have these conversations and meetings, all stakeholders have to be at the table. Because now I know what Faisal's doing, but I'm in the sector and it's all good and I'm inspired, but these conversations need to be broader and everybody needs to see their role in that value chain, but the government needs to anchor it.
And can I just add one more point? I know I'm talking a lot. Also, protecting these spaces. For example, in Dar es Salaam now, I think we have one big ground, that Leaders Club, that's used for mostly all the major events. I heard a rumor that it's being sold. I don't know if that's true or not. But the point is, there aren't any spaces to allow these cultural actions as an income, and it is an income. I mean, you've proved, you know, that there's so much money here to be made, but people just need to change that perception.
Absolutely.
I think they intentionally just blind themselves with that, because when they go search for those fees, permits and whatever, they don't count that as, okay, this came out of cultural tourism. They just think, oh, this is our right. When they go in for the visas or whatever, they don't count that as, oh, this visa fee came from cultural tourism. So maybe something needs to be done to indicate that this money came out of artists, this one came out of, you know.
And we have the British Council Mobility Fund here.
Welcome.
Hi, Nico. You just missed it. It was amazing.
The suspect.